Hi, everybody. This is DeeKnight back at you for part two of Summit for Democracy, Apex of Hypocrisy. Um, just wanted to mention that at the very start of the first part, I made a blunder. Hopefully, you didn't notice it, but if you did, you might have. I talked about President Ford's Summit for Democracy. I quickly corrected myself, but it was a kind of an interesting mistake. Um, it wasn't a test as to whether you were paying attention or not. It was probably more like a Freudian slip, since Ford was a big deal in my past life, which you can read about in my book, my Whirlwind Lives, Navigating Decades of Storms. Uh, it's in the chapter that talks about um, a very successful and large scale boycott by war resistors of the clemency program Ford proclaimed after pardoning Nixon in August of 1974. But enough on that. Let's get started. Part two, Summit for Democracy, Apex of Hypocrisy. The last thing I said was the hybrid warfare campaign aimed at overthrowing Nicaragua's Sandinista government has many parallels in the ongoing U.S. coup attempts against Venezuela and Cuba, as well as the military push the OAS oversaw against Bolivia's elected president Evo Morales in 2019. In Latin America, the U.S. actively sabotages democracy rather than defending it, especially in countries that steer a path independent of Washington. Progressive International's David Adler, writing together with Guillaume Long in The Guardian, November 15th, denounced the OAS for its role in sabotaging elections throughout Latin America and fomenting the 2019 coup in Bolivia. The OAS found no evidence of fraud in the election of Bolivian President Morales, but it lied to the public and manipulated its own findings to help depose him. It was later reported, according to Adler and Long, that the U.S. representative to the OAS actually pressured and steered the observation mission to reach a determination of fraud. They were citing Jake Johnston of the Center for Economic and Policy Research. The U.S. government is complicit in these attacks on democracy, not only as an ally, but also as a leading member of the OAS, Adler and Long write. They say two-thirds of U.S. citizens now believe that democracy is under threat, and it's much worse in Latin America. In Brazil, half the people believe Trumpist President Jair Bolsonaro will attempt a coup d'etat, even though a sweeping majority support former President Lula da Silva's return to power. In Haiti, the U.S. dislodged the progressive President Aristide twice. This, according to the former head of the UN in Haiti, is the origin of the present tragedy in that country. On a recent trip to Ecuador following its recent elections, U.S. Secretary of State Blinken lavished praise on President Guillermo Lasso in the same week that Lasso declared a nationwide state of emergency to intimidate critics of his government and distract from an investigation into alleged tax fraud following his appearance in the Pandora Papers leak. In Bogota, Colombia, hours later, Blinken applauded the democratic credentials of Colombian President Ivan Duque. We have no better ally on the full range of issues that our democracies face in this hemisphere, Blinken said, while his government stands accused of targeting protesters and allowing an unprecedented number of assassinations of indigenous, black, and peasant leaders to take place under his watch. The term "our democracies" reveals a lot. The democracy label identifies a country allied with the United States. Adding "our" emphasizes the relationship. It's an echo of the old British Empire, only now it's neo-colonial, cemented and enforced with bank loans and troops on the ground in most cases. The late November elections in Honduras were especially interesting. The winner was Xiomara Castro, wife of former President Mel Zelaya, who was kidnapped by the Honduran military in a US-backed coup in 2009. Zelaya had forged an alliance with Venezuela and Nicaragua. Since that coup, the US-backed Honduran president has faced drug-running charges, and the flood of Honduran refugees has created its own political crisis in the USA. Following her electoral victory, Xiomara Castro received a note from Nicaraguan President Ortega and Vice President Rosario Murillo. On behalf of the Nicaraguan people, and women in particular, we express our joy at this historic election, which once again shows the noble, fighting, and hard-working character of the women and families of this fraternal and supportive Honduras. According to the New York Times, Zelaya said he and Xiomara Castro want to rebuild good relations with the United States, calling it Honduras's vital partner. I think the U.S. has understood that sectors of their government have brought the country to an abyss following the 2009 coup, Mel Zelaya said. We hope the Biden administration has learned a lesson and are willing to work with us. Hopes abound for good working relationships with the U.S. and its allies, but as the Chinese and Russian ambassadors wrote, a truly democratic government will support democracy in international relations. It will not foster hegemony and division abroad. The path to prosperity of nations goes through respectful cooperation with each other, despite some differences in views on particular issues. The statement added that no country has the right to judge the world's vast and varied political landscape by a single yardstick, and having other countries copy one's political system through color revolution, regime change, and even use of force go against international law and are obviously anti-democratic. Earlier this year, 16 governments from around the world formed a group of friends in defense of the Charter of the United Nations. When I say this year, I mean 2021. The group is seeking to promote multilateralism and diplomacy over the use of force against perceived violations from other UN member states. The group said the world is seeing a growing resort to unilateralism marked by isolationist and arbitrary actions, including the imposition of unilateral coercive measures or the withdrawal from landmark agreements and multilateral institutions. The Chinese and Russian ambassadors emphasized the UN as the core of the international system, saying there is only one set of rules, that is, the basic norms governing international relations based on the purposes and principles of the UN Charter. They opposed flaunting the rules-based international order without referencing the UN and international law and attempting to replace international rules with the dictums of certain blocs. When they say certain, they mean US-led blocs. They added that there has been no shortage of wars and turmoil worldwide to prove that spreading democracy, its political system, and values against other countries will severely undermine regional and international peace, security, and stability. Bombings of Yugoslavia, military intervention in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Libya, and democratic transformation do nothing but harm. Countries should focus on running their own affairs well, not condescendingly criticizing others. Certain foreign governments better think about themselves and what is going on in their homes. When they say certain foreign governments, they mean the United States. That's the end of this segment. I'm a member of the DSA International Committee's Anti-War Subcommittee, and I'm also author of my Whirlwind Lives, Navigating Decades of Storms, soon to be out from Guernica World Editions. I'm reachable at DeeKnight.blog. I hope you'll leave your comments here, and I hope you'll sign up on my blog to receive more newsletters. Thank you very much for your attention. Sorry if I bored you to death. Bye for now.